thing is, why do some people like 2-channel over home theater? I've always wondered, like, what is it about it? It seems like more speakers, the better. I have a great experience with my home theater, but I also appreciate 2-channel listening. And so that was something I've been thinking about. Like, what is it about 2-channel that these people really like? These people, these people. Yeah. And so I was doing a lot of calibration as I normally do, pulled some all-nighters and really finding out about Odyssey, about REW and what it's doing right and what it's doing wrong. And even something as simple as levels and delays when it comes to home theater, it gets really complicated because we're talking about, in my case, I have 13 speakers and 3 subs. Now I have to integrate all those and make them all work together. That's tough. Even with stereo, you see these guys are tweaking the system and really aligning the speakers, taking their time. And that's just 2 speakers, just to get one center image. You think about what you need for home theater, you got to multiply that out and have a center image for the left speaker and the center, the left speaker or the center and the right, and the left speaker and the left surround, and the left speaker and the height. And so Reverend Slim, I know he wants me to talk about his speaker pair section in the spatial toolkit. And that's the reason why he wanted that specifically, was to get good imaging between all of these adjacent speakers. And so I was thinking about that and how really it can get very complicated. Now, my background is, I had an IT business for 10 years. So technical stuff, it's kind of just second nature to me. I kind of grew up with all this tech stuff. But I can imagine somebody who's maybe a little bit, maybe they didn't grow up with computers. They would look at this like, DSP, and then I got to get the Windows app, and then I got to use this REW. Like, what is all this stuff? It's a little bit complicated. And I can imagine that, it may make some people feel a little bit less comfortable. Versus with stereo, it's really just 2 speakers, right? A lot of times they don't even like to use subs. And so they just have giant speakers. And I think that's a good way to go. I was listening to some 2-channel music, just my 2 speakers, and you really do get a nice center image. If you have it set up properly with good timing and delay and levels, you can get some good depth perception depending on the track. And they're just less to mess with. There's less to get wrong. So that's what my conclusion was that with home theater, there's a lot of places you can go wrong. You can tune it in a way where the frequency response is actually worse than not using room correction. And I'd say a lot of it is like that. If you have some great speakers and you listen to them in pure direct mode, let's say, no processing, it sounds pretty good already. Now you apply the, Dirac or Odyssey, and you may be surprised. Of course, you spent money on that, so automatically you want it to sound better. But there are cases where maybe you don't like it better. I've seen some blind tests where there are people who preferred the room correction off to on. So, yeah. But having said all that, what I would say is that Tim says here, 2-channels okay, but just boring compared to the King Kong and Ready Player One, just my opinion. Yes. And so having said all the things I just said, the thing is that when you have home theater set up correctly, that's when you have an awesome experience. And I don't know how many people have it set up correctly. Good sub integration, perfect placement of all the speakers. That's hard when you have 13 speakers to place them where they need to be. Even a simple setting, levels and delays. So that was my experiment, was to see how good the auto correction did versus manual correction. And manual is still better. The auto correction did a reasonable job. I can't really complain considering it's automated, but really when you dial those things in, everything just kind of snaps into place. Getting the levels set correctly, getting the delays set correctly. It's very, very tricky. It's much easier for home theater if you optimize for a single listening position. In my case, I have 4 theater seats, and I'm a perfectionist, so I want to make it so that it's, the bass is smooth, on all the seats, but you always have to remember that the more seats that you optimize for, the less optimal it is for a single seat. And so my new thinking is that I should have a male and listening position calibration where it's optimized for just one seat, and then another one that's optimized for all 4 seats in the rare case that my family is going to watch with me, and usually it's just me. So yeah, that's just the reality of it, you know. They're fine watching on their iPad or anything else, but you know, once in a while we do watch a movie together, and you know, I don't think that they care so much, but I care, so I want to make it as good as possible. So Junior OG says stereo for a movie, yuck. Yeah. The problem with stereo is there's no center channel. That is the biggest issue with stereo. You know, you really want to anchor the dialogue to the screen, and the center channel does a great job of that if you have it placed correctly. Also, we've talked about the 2 kilohertz interoral crosstalk. Interoral crosstalk that happens when it comes to 2 speakers stereo. What ends up happening is if you play some pink noise from both of them and you just move slightly like this, you'll notice that there's a change that happens, and that's in the 2 kilohertz region based on your dome, your head size. So the center channel resolves that. And so that's really it. The other thing I noticed is when it comes to surround, it's really hard to replicate sound coming from behind you. You know, you actually have to have speakers behind you. I know there's a lot of psychoacoustic tricks that people try to do to implement in order to make it sound like it's behind you, but haven't found very many that can do that well. You know, I think it's actually easier to simulate perceived height effects, because when it comes to height, it's actually a change more so in the tonality. You know, the tonal balance changes as it goes higher, just based on your head related transfer function. So that's easier to simulate, I've found. Yeah. Anyway, that was one of the things. What do you guys think? What are you guys saying in here? What are you guys saying? One way I tweak the center channel level and timing is to put music track with Dolby Surround and toggle on and off with stereo. Oh yeah, that's a good way. Okay, so yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that. I think it's more to do with complexity. There's just too much stuff to mess up when it comes to home theater. You know, it's really not that easy. So hopefully someone will come up with a way to make that process easier. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see, and actually get better results. I think that's the other thing. It takes maybe 40 minutes if you have a bunch of speakers to do a calibration. There's a lot of things that you can do wrong, so you get a bad result afterwards. And it's expensive, you know. So all these things, I can understand why 2-channel people are just like, you know what, I'm good with the 2-channel stuff. I totally understand. And you can still get a great experience with 2-channel for music mostly, you know. Make sure to check out our audio-only version of the podcast at anchor.fm/Daily HiFi, or just go to your favorite podcasting service and search for Daily HiFi.